live. So recording. Royce Schulte, welcome to your show, The Bulk Truth.
Thanks.
You excited?
I am a little bit nervous.
Nothing to be nervous about. I'm the goofy one. I'll make all the mistakes. You just dazzle us with your wisdom and we'll be good. So the Bulk Truth, we landed on the name of this show to be The Bulk Truth. Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind that name, Royce.
So I think really it sums up what we're in business for. So bulk material handling is the industry that we serve. And so CADARO's flow sensors fit into that space. What we like to tell people is if their material will flow and it's dry, we can measure it. And so that's really where the Bulk Truth came, and a little bit of Chat GPT and AI, and here we are.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent name. And, you know, the hard truth, or what I'm thinking of the typical term when they say the hard truth. But the bulk truth is a kind of a hard truth. If you're not measuring that, then there's a lot of things slipping through the cracks, so to speak.
Sure.
So your tagline is you can't manage what you don't measure. And how does that connect with your industry?
So for the most part, we believe that most of our industry is utilizing traditional methods. So they may be using stopwatches. Sometimes they're banging on a bin with a hammer, but there's some traditional method of guesstimating, how much material they have or how much material is being transferred. In some cases, it's at the end of a process. They've got a clipboard and they're making a note of what they believe happened, and that's the official record. But ultimately, our flow sensors, what we envision them to become to the industry, is a means to automate. And so with accurate measurements of both the flow rates and weight, we believe that we're going to create digital transparency as far as operational efficiency and ultimately lead to some form of automation.
So, I'm the novice here. I'm not the industry expert. And so we have these dry bulk materials. These are dry materials that flow through bins. They throw through tubes and they end up in some sort of container, be it a truck, a trailer, a rail car, etc. And so as it flows through, that's where you guys are capturing the exact measurement that's ending up in that container.
That's correct. So anywhere that it's being transferred. So we started in seed and grain. And so that's, we can use those as a reference. So as materials flowing through a pipe or a chute or coming out of an overhead bin, if you will. So any point of transfer along that process, we can actually install one of our flow sensors to capture what that weight is in real time.
So, in my head, I'm seeing people standing there with a bag at the end of the chute with a weigh device, and they're turning that thing on and off when it reaches a certain weight. And that's happening in a bag, like a fertilizer bag or a dog food bag or something, right? But these are for giant containers, and it's always been, you said, a guesstimate, or typically it's a guesstimate.
Correct. That's right. And so, your example as far as, maybe filling a bag, a lot of time that's done on a static scale, and those are highly accurate. But as far as how the material got to that state, so as the grain or whatever's entering into a process or into a plant, normally you're transferring material in. So knowing how much material is being transferred at any given time, or how much material has been transferred in total, have enough to batch for the day. And so really where we start, is as the material is brought into the plant, as it's transferred through different processes. Generally, it goes through some type of cleaner, separator. And so through each of those processes, knowing what came in or came out is very important to know, how efficient those pieces of equipment are operating. And ultimately, the bottom line is it's affecting their yields. And so how much would they actually have had to go into that bag is determined upstream. And so in most cases, people are waiting till the end of the day to know any adjustments or how they performed versus knowing it in real time and being able to react.
So everybody, loves to hear the backstory to this and why this device came into existence. what was the problem, the idea, and then maybe that was the first version, but what's it look like now?
Sure. So the technology originally solved a problem. And so there was a multinational seed company that was looking for a way to measure soybean seeds as it entered into the plant without impacting either the quality or the germ of the seed. And so that was the problem that they were looking for a solution. As they went out and looked at various technologies and gave this challenge to two professors, this is what the technology was that was developed to address that. And so our patents are based off of measuring based off of pressure on a load cell in a vertical or incline application. And so we're able to measure that in real time. And not only can we measure, but there was little to no impact on the actual product itself. And so it's different than maybe other technologies like a strike plate, where maybe you're having a negative impact on the materials. And so that was the initial problem that was solved. But what happened was this technology fit for any product that's dry and flowable to be able to measure. So that took us beyond seed and grains into other materials, if you will. And that's what we're in the process of expanding into now.
You said flow cell, is that what you said?
I'm not sure.
It's passing by a load cell. Maybe that's what you
Right.
call it?
Yeah, so it's a load cell. So it's pressure on a load cell. And so load cells are very standard pieces of equipment, but that's ultimately what we utilize in our technology. So the signal that we're capturing is ultimately being fed to our control device, where our proprietary software converts that signal into real-time flow rate and weight.
So the real efficiency here is more in knowing the proper amounts, reducing the human interaction. What other efficiencies are we gaining?
So ultimately, what we're doing is we're creating that transparency of actual productivity, if you will. And so, I mean, and then how is that being utilized? In a lot of cases, it's enabling automation to where we can turn on or turn off, so we can open or close. And so in the case of like truck loading, so generally you have an overhead bin, materials flowing out of that overhead bin. As we come onto a new facility, many times we install one of our sensors, and they're still operating it manually. So if somebody's visually watching the process, they're opening and closing the gate, but very quickly as they become comfortable with the technology, then they start looking for ways to integrate that to an actuator on the gate. So now they just hit start. They type in, I want 50,000 pounds. They hit start, opens the gate. When it gets to 50,000, it closes the gate, and they've accurately measured the truck and automated a process where previously it was being manually done. A lot of times it was being done from a catwalk out in the environment. In a lot of cases, it's in the north. So you're in the Midwest in temperatures like today, where it's very cold, dusty. So it's moving them to a control room or an office environment where they're just monitoring the process.
Wow. So the old way, or the way before this technology existed, that manual turn on and off in that dusty, cold environment, then that truck, we hopefully guessed pretty close, then that truck would move to a weigh scale.
Correct.
Then if it was over or under, then if it was close enough, they just sent them on their way. But if it wasn't, they had to come back around for a second try.
That's correct. So there's operators that have been loading trucks for many years, and it's amazing how accurate they can be. But the key is they have to be at work. They have to be paying attention, and so they're very focused and very good at their jobs. But the days that they're absent, the day that they retire, they're very hard to replace, because that level of experience, and they're very hard to replicate. And so, that's one of the challenges. What we're learning is, in most cases, greater than 50% of the time, trucks are being cycled. So they're being brought back around because they're either overweight or underweight. And so it's very inefficient as far as going across the scales, coming back, taking an extra few minutes, very costly as far as what that time costs today versus historically. And so utilizing sensors like this are enabling people to do it more in a different way, more efficiently, with less labor that's focused on a task like this. They're able to focus on higher value tasks. And again, it's something that they can monitor over time, or in some cases fully automate.
So being overweight could be costly on the road later as well, right?
Depending on what you're loading. So in what area. So generally, I mean, there's some companies, corporations that they have policies that, a truck overweight does not leave the facility, right? There's liability associated with it. And so, there's policies that no truck overweight leaves. So they're guaranteed that something's going to happen. They're going to have to come back and take material off. When you're looking at rail, I mean, there's some of the same challenges as far as overloading or how you're loading rail, potentially subjecting yourself to fines. And in those cases, sometimes when they get downstream, they actually have to take material off. And not only do they have to pay a fine, they pay for the material to be taken off, and then they have to pay for the material to be disposed of. And so, the value that's lost can be quite significant.
Time, labor, and those fees. So one of our questions that we have prepared here: what specific moment or field experience made it obvious that hidden inconsistency was a real problem worth solving?
So, as I've had a chance to travel and meet with customers and see, sensors being installed, I'm always amazed because we always ask people, what are your flow rates? We need to spec out a site before we actually make a recommendation. And the fact that we digitally create, we digitally display exactly what's happening at any given moment. And so where people maybe assume that they had a certain flow rate, once you get it on a screen, there's no denying it. And so as this unit's calibrated, it shows precisely what's happening. In some cases, as we may have a bucket elevator. There's been times where we install a unit and you can see the variability coming through the system to identify that, hey, that elevator is missing buckets. And so we can actually see, based on the inconsistent flow, what's going on. And so these sensors have been very good as far as diagnosing problems upstream and even starting to see problems, in the flow before it actually becomes a big issue and something that could be actionable.
So like data is gold to an organization. And so this is another set of data or insight that you're providing for these companies that they didn't have before.
That's correct. I mean, the terminology just today that came up was really we're enabling a digital transformation. So we're moving people from that traditional means of measuring, and we're, the digital data that we're creating for them is not only impactful today, but also down the road as far as starting to create KPIs and measurement tools where they can understand how efficient they're operating or they're not, and then make adjustments and hold people accountable as far as results.
So is there obviously some of these dry bulks, they need to be mixed. You need to take this dry mix and that dry mix and mix it to a certain percentage, right?
Sure.
Is this a use case where CADARO would be helpful?
Sure. So the fact that we can measure, so we can quantify what's going on in the cases where they can qualify. So if they have different quality of materials, so maybe test weights are different. And so ultimately they're trying to create a certain blend that they're actually selling to their customer. And so if they have higher quality, lower quality, if they're doing blending, they can actually utilize these technologies to adjust the flows to hit exactly where they need to be. And so as far as creating, ultimately what they're doing is creating margin. In some cases, they may be taking a material that's too dry. They may be adding, moisture back to a material, right, to bring it to that optimum level. Again, now that they know that the flow rate, they measure, what those moisture percentages are, they can hit that optimum level. And again, to have the best quality product and ultimately, the most consistent product for their customers.
Yeah, I was thinking of some days are drier or more wet, and it would change the actual weight in the mix.
Correct. Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, people are trying to, when you're in the production phase, you're trying to hit a certain spec, and consistency and quality are very important. And generally, we're having those conversations with customers. How do we help them achieve that?
So, what's the most surprising use case that you run into so far?
So, as we came into this space, we spent a lot of time understanding our own product. So technically, we've owned the company and be 3 years here in March. And so through that process, we had a chance to work backwards with people that had our technology, and we had an opportunity to improve the technology based on what they were actually trying to achieve. So I think, for us, the most interesting is we have a local test case where we've been working hand in hand with the customer. They provide us daily data as far as automating their truck loading process. So they scale in, they integrate that scale weight, that tear weight of that truck using RFID sensors. The drivers are using those to scan in whenever they come across the scale. When they get back to our sensor, they use those RFIDs again. And so that is identifying the truck that's on underneath the spout, if you will. So it knows precisely how much needs to be measured or loaded. And then we hit start. And then once it's full, then they scale out. And so we actually have over 26,000 trucks worth of data. And across that, we're averaging commercially, we're averaging about 0.1% across all of those loads. And that's very encouraging for us, because it's been a journey to be able to come and achieve that. And we continue to learn and continue to look for ways that we improve. With our flow sensors, our personal target is plus or minus 1%. That's where we started. So whenever we achieve something to such a high degree, it's very satisfying as far as being able to deliver that and exceed, what we set as a standard upfront.
So what's the size of your addressable market?
So I think overall globally, this industry is estimated to be about 10 billion. As far as the total market, it's segmented. You have truck scales, you have rail scales, you have bulk weighers, but then you have the traditional methods of measurement. And it's estimated that the traditional means of estimating is actually greater than the market size in total. And so, this market potential of this type of technology is playing in a space of roughly between 10 to 15 billion. And as we continue to perfect the technology and the more that the industry is looking to enable automation, is more of a market opportunity and a market growth potential for something like this technology.
So trends in the world and the industry, I would imagine, is putting pressure on improving automation and data collection and usage. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I mean, typically what we find is people are looking for a means to measure, number one. They're normally looking at ways to address the challenge around labor, right? Finding labor, especially in more remote areas. I mean, labor is very competitive as far as, something that, and then having a job that people want to do. Standing out in the cold and the dust is sometimes not really what people are wanting to sign up for versus what they get paid somewhere else to do something different. Safety typically is very important within these companies, and rightfully so. And so you start tying all these things together, and ultimately that's why I think people are going to be looking at automation, because if I can measure this, then I can start leading to means of automating, and ultimately it's going to help me in my cost, but ideally it's going to help me in my returns, my overall performance and my, and the margins that we're able to generate. It becomes a point where if you don't have technologies like this, you're going to be left behind because you're not going to be competitive.
Crazy. Tell us a little bit about CADARO and people involved. Let's start with you.
So we've been involved roughly about 3 years. David Terry and Charlie Clark are two of our partners that helped put this deal together. So Charlie had previous experience as a distributor in Texas. Networked with David Terry as far as looking at the business opportunity and his past experiences. What are ways to really utilize this technology and get the value out of it. And the decision was made ultimately to buy the company, and that's when I came on site. So my background was sales, marketing, business development, primarily in ag, for roughly about 30 years. And so great chance to come together with the team and put this together. We have a very intelligent, bright person, Josh McGuire, our CTO. So he's been instrumental in helping us perfect the technology, especially as it relates to the software and the controls, and not only for the current generation, but some of the mapped out future generations as well.
So if someone's listening to this, kind of describe your right now at this moment in time, what your perfect niche customer is.
So for us, that perfect niche customer We started advertising just a little over a year ago. And the perfect customer for us has been people that are reaching out because they know they have a problem that they're trying to solve, and we provide the means of achieving that. And so that's been a very um, focused customer for us, if you will, just because problem solution. So to go out and share a lot about our flow sensors and what it could do, what we're finding is that the best return on investment for time for both us and our customers is focusing with those that are really wanting to go down this path. And it's been and we've identified what the process is as far as that digital transformation. It's really looking for that one problem that could have a major impact to help them solve. And we generally are starting with that, and then our customers generally are coming back and finding additional places that we can help them enable automation and help them dial in the performance of their production. And
So
so
they're
that's
already, sorry to interrupt, but they're already convinced and understand they've got a weakness here or a place that they could improve and collect better data and improve automation. And those are the conversations that are short, I guess, or
yeah. I think I mean they have an identified need. And
Mhm.
so there's still always a level of skepticism because there's a lot of people that have claimed to be able to do what's being done with CADARO flow sensors. And so we accept that challenge. If we can't deliver on what needs, we generally go on site. We're part of the process. So that's been helpful for us to identify areas of improvement to continue to improve the overall performance, and then also start thinking about the next generation of products. And so I would say there's majority of the people are skeptical as far as having the conversation, what it can be done. And in most cases, they're needing to elevate this to leadership. And so, working hand in hand to get a test case, to get one put in to show what the return is, then supports additional investment and budget support for additional applications.
That's a great segue. So someone's talked to you. We've decided we got a test case that can be implemented. And so you go on site. Kind of help us envision what's going on there.
Generally, I mean, from the start, a lot of our site reviews are virtual. And so there's a lot of times we're having a virtual conversation where we're sharing of information. So we can share examples, commercial examples of what we've done in other sites with different materials and different setups. In many cases, we're asking customers to share, pictures or videos of what they're thinking, what their process looks like, what the process flows look like, and ultimately what it comes down to is what will fit. And so a lot of times it's a tape measure going out and measuring what size chute or pipe do we have for a spout, what is the gate size, what are our flow rates. But from there, generally we can come to a formal recommendation and quote as far as what we would recommend, and then hand it over to the customers. So the customers are installing these. Many cases, they're running wiring from where the sensor is going to be to where the control panel is going to be. We have the conversations as far as IT integration, if they have systems or software that they want to integrate these measurements into. So their operators are operating off of their normal platform. And then in some cases, they have no automation. And so in that case, we have our own PLC control panels. They can fully automate from our panels. And so we can support either, but that's part of that process before we ever go to site.
And so you've had several different models. And what version or what, yeah, like an iPhone, which version of the iPhone do we have as far as CADARO is concerned now?
Yeah, so CADARO, we envision that we have the potential to create a lot of value for our customers. And so for us, we want to be very flexible as far as how the technology can be offered. And so we have three options. So we find with traditional companies, many of them go through a CapEx process. They want to own everything. They don't want to pay for an annual subscription. So we have option one is you can buy everything. You can have a perpetual software license for that unit. You just pay for software updates or upgrades or support when you need it. And so that was really popular early on. The next phase is it's been normal that you get a question. Well, what about support? When I have a problem or we need something or we change people, who do I call? And so we have that option as well. So you can still own everything, but you can pay a nominal software subscription that gets you software updates annually plus remote phone support. So that's becoming popular for the people that want some level of support and don't have that within the organization. And the last is, and the fastest ROI is what we call our CADARO complete subscription option. So we own everything. You install it, you're just using it year to year, and that's the fastest payback. So it's an OpEx expense, and that's been very solid for letting people get have an experience with the technology and see what the potential is in their organization, and then they may choose to segue into one of the other options at a later date.
Awesome. So you have several different models. You have 2 models, 3 models. How many models of
the sensors themselves?
Well, you have the tell me your names of your products. I'm the Diamond.
You're making me think on my feet. So
yeah. Well, this
late in the afternoon.
You told me you like to dance.
Yeah. I've got my tap shoes on. So we have. So for the applications, up until now, we've had our vertical applications. We call that our Veracity series, and so we can measure up to 5,000 pounds a minute or bushels per hour with those units. There's 4 of them. There's a VR 600, a 2K, 4K, and a 5K, and so that's 5,000 pounds a minute, bushels per hour. So that's on the vertical, and on the incline we have from 2,000 all the way up to 50,000. So 2, 5, 20, and 50. And so the sizes really depend on the volume of material that you're trying to move, right? The types of material. And we'll be launching at our upcoming Jeeps conference, our newest series. It's going to be in our vertical series, but that will expand our capacities well beyond the 5,000, and will also reduce the overall footprint requirements to install. So stay tuned for that one.
All right. Jeeps conference is coming up. So in case this goes live before that conference, when is it? Where is it?
So it's the Jeeps Exchange 2026. It's in February in Kansas City. Kicks off on February the 22nd. We're going to be actually on the exchange floor on February the 23rd, that Monday afternoon, I think 1:30. Josh and I will be doing a presentation talking about some of those hidden inconsistencies and how people are measuring today and what the opportunity is, and hope to have fun. I mean, share, some of the stories and some of the observations we've made and some of the problems that can be solved. So that's when the show will be.
Is there any question I haven't asked that you were hoping to cover today?
Yeah, I like being on the side asking the questions more than answering them. But no, I think it's been good. Thanks for how you laid this out and your support in putting this together.
Yeah. So let's say someone's listening and they're interested, or they want to figure out or have a conversation about what potentially this solution might look like in their future. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. So usually they can reach out to our number. I think you've got it maybe available. So that's an office line. So they can reach out by phone. They can reach out by email. It's just royce.schulte@cadaro.com. Those are good ways to get the conversation started.
All right. And then it's cadaro.com. You can also connect with Royce on LinkedIn. He's got a nice custom URL there, Royce Schulte. And I think this has been an excellent inaugural conversation on the bulk truth. Royce, how do you feel?
I like it. The bulk truth.
The bulk truth. Who knew you're going to grow up and have a show called The Bulk Truth, huh?
I can envision somebody saying other things.
All right. Good job, Royce. You're a natural at this. We'll keep having these conversations. We'll be doing these on a regular basis, on a regular schedule. And we'll see you guys next week on The Bulk Truth. And that's a wrap, Royce.